Imagine you walk into a room, shoulders relaxed, gaze sharp, presence calm. You don't speak, you don't smile, you don't even look in her direction. And yet, she notices you. She can't help it. Her brain has already registered something about you that doesn't scream for attention, but demands it. The twist? You haven't even made a move. And yet, she's the one starting to chase. Most men spend years learning how to approach women, how to initiate conversations, how to move first. But what if I told you there's a way to reverse that dynamic? A way to flip the switch inside her psychology that triggers her natural desire to pursue you, without ever having to chase, beg, or try too hard. This isn't about games. It's not about manipulation. It's about creating the right kind of presence, the kind that makes her feel like she has to do something about you. And here's the truth most guys will never hear. Women want to make the first move. Not all the time, not with every guy, but when the situation feels safe, electric, and slightly unpredictable, that's when her instincts come alive. When she sees a man who isn't needy, who radiates confidence without noise, who can hold his own without trying to prove it, that's when she starts to lean in. Because attraction isn't logical, it's emotional. And if you know how to press those silent emotional triggers, she'll make the move before you even open your mouth. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build that exact effect, how to create an environment, both externally and internally, that makes women want to initiate. We'll draw from evolutionary psychology, seduction theory, behavioral research, and of course lessons from legends like Robert Greene, Neil Strauss, and even Casanova himself. But unlike most advice you've heard, we won't just tell you to be confident. That's vague. We're getting surgical, precise, psychological. By the end of this video, you won't just understand what makes her chase. You'll become the kind of man that naturally triggers that instinct, the kind of man she can't ignore. Because when you do this right, she will make the first move, and it won't feel forced. It'll feel inevitable. Let's begin with the first key. It starts with removing your presence, not in the physical sense, but emotionally. Most men, when attracted to a woman, start projecting interest, availability, energy. They try to be funny, impressive, agreeable. But what they don't realize is that predictability kills mystery, and mystery is the oxygen of female desire. When she knows you're into her too early, too obviously, her brain closes the loop. There's no uncertainty, no suspense. But when you pull back, when your body language is calm, when your words are measured, when your attention is scattered just enough, you activate what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. It's the principle that the human brain holds on to unfinished experiences. When something is left incomplete, we obsess over it, we replay it, we try to solve it. So instead of broadcasting your interest, you plant ambiguity. You let her wonder, was that eye contact intentional? Why hasn't he come up to me? Is he even attracted to me, or is he just naturally like that? That's when her curiosity becomes personal. That's when she starts observing you, asking her friends, testing the waters. That's when her brain starts to move first, even before her body follows. This is exactly what Casanova mastered. He wasn't the most handsome man in the room. He was the most unreadable. He didn't pounce. He paced. He didn't impress. He intrigued. And every woman that chased him was chasing answers. And men who are mysterious, not distant, but deliberately ambiguous, light a fuse in the female imagination. But let's be clear, mystery without grounding becomes aloofness, and aloofness kills connection. That's why the second key is anchored self-presence. This is where a lot of guys mess up. They confuse being hard to get with being cold, disconnected, or boring. But if she senses nothing from you, she doesn't lean in, she loses interest. So here's what you do instead. You become still, but expressive. Your energy is calm, but your eye contact is potent. You don't say much, but when you do, your words carry weight. You speak slowly, with comfort. You laugh, but only when it's real. You create a contrast. A man who isn't performing, but still vibrates with life. This is what Robert Greene calls strategic withdrawal. You give just enough to ignite the flame, then pull back to let it burn on its own. It's the art of letting her invest first. And the moment she does, the rules of engagement change. She's no longer reacting. She's initiating. That's power. And not the fake kind that comes from pretending you don't care. I'm talking about real power. The kind that comes from being so centered in who you are, so comfortable in your own skin, that her validation becomes optional, not necessary, not even expected. Just a bonus. When you reach that level of internal freedom, you'll notice something strange. The less you try, the more women try with you. Because your energy becomes selective, and what's rare is attractive. There's something dangerously attractive about a man who doesn't flinch under tension. When you hold silence in a conversation, when you pause before responding, when you let her speak without rushing to fill the void, that space creates pressure. And pressure in seduction isn't discomfort, it's electricity. Most guys are terrified of silence. They associate it with failure. But what they miss is that silence, when held with calm confidence, communicates dominance without a word. It says, I don't need to entertain you, I am already enough. And in that stillness, she starts projecting onto you. Who is he? What's going on in his mind? What does he think of me? Those questions mean one thing. Now she's the one leaning forward. This subtle tension is the foundation of what mystery, yes, the seduction master from the game, called emotional stimulation through contrast. You don't just show up cool, you show up layered. One moment you're playful, the next deeply reflective. You tease her, but then you go quiet and serious. You're sharp, but humble. She can't put you in a box. And that ambiguity forces her to seek resolution. That desire to understand you becomes her internal reason to stay close. Now, there's another dimension most men overlook: nonverbal command. You don't seduce just with words. You seduce with rhythm, with stillness, with the way your body moves through space. Watch how dancers captivate, how a slight tilt of the head or a slow turn of the body draws more attention than flashy moves ever could. In a room, don't rush. Move like time doesn't apply to you. Adjust your pace, speak slower than the room, walk as if you're not trying to get anywhere. These subtle cues scream, I lead my own world. And when you lead your own world, women want in. But let's break a myth right here. Making her chase you isn't about being passive. It's about being unavailable to chaos. A man who is too easily impressed, too easily swayed, too reactive, he kills the chase. Women aren't drawn to men who are emotionally erratic. They're drawn to men who are unshakable. And being unshakable doesn't mean you're a stone. It means you choose your reactions carefully. You let her flirt, but you don't melt. You see her beauty, but you don't collapse into it. You appreciate, but you don't pedestalize. That balance is intoxicating. Now imagine this. You're talking to her and she gives you a compliment. Most men would instantly return it, trying to match the energy. But not you. You smile subtly, nod, and shift the topic. That simple move sends a signal. You're used to receiving interest. It doesn't shake you. And suddenly, she feels like she's the one performing. She's the one working to impress you. That role reversal doesn't just make her curious. It excites her. Because the thrill isn't in getting a compliment. The thrill is in earning it. Another trigger that makes her initiate: strategic micro-escalation. This is when you subtly raise the emotional or physical intimacy. Then stop. For example, in a conversation, you might brush her hand once, then never do it again. Or you lean in close for a moment while speaking, then pull back. These micro-escalations spike her arousal levels without creating pressure. And when you don't push further, it leaves her with an itch, one that her body wants to scratch. That's when she'll accidentally touch you, lean in more, laugh harder. And every time she does, she's chasing emotional resolution. Let's go deeper. A woman making the first move doesn't always look like a grand gesture. Often it's in the micro signals. She stays longer in your space. She asks if you're coming to the same event. She offers to help you with something. And here's the secret. If you've done the internal work, you'll recognize those signals. Because most men are so fixated on performing that they miss what's right in front of them. They don't see that her fidgeting with her hair, her glancing sideways, her sudden curiosity about your interests, those are moves. Soft ones, yes, but real. Neil Strauss wrote that the most seductive men aren't the ones with the best lines. They're the ones who create friction. Not conflict, but emotional friction. A slight disagreement, a subtle pushback, a refusal to agree just to win her over. When you do that, she feels alive. She's not coasting, she's engaging. And that emotional spark is what separates a casual chat from a memorable encounter. This is why emotional independence is so critical. If she senses that your mood rises and falls based on her validation, she knows she controls the frame. And when she controls the frame, she has no reason to pursue. You've already given her the power. But when you're grounded, when your energy is consistent regardless of her attention, you become the prize. Not because you said so, but because you behave like someone who values himself first. That's rare. And what's rare triggers pursuit. Let's explore a powerful truth that most men ignore entirely. The environment you create around you becomes an extension of your seduction. You don't need to say the perfect line if the energy you project already speaks for you. When she steps into your presence, she should feel something shift. Not because you're doing anything flashy, but because the way you move, the way you command the space, the way you relate to your surroundings, feels different. Intentional, collected, selective. That difference makes her alert, curious, engaged. Start with your presence in a room. When you walk into a space, don't scan for her. Let her scan for you. This means you're not hunting, you're observing. You take your time, you ground yourself. Maybe you lean on the wall casually, take a slow sip of your drink, or make light conversation with someone without broadcasting it. You're not avoiding attention, but you're not chasing it either. You're just there, calm, unbothered. And that paradox, being accessible yet untouchable, is what triggers her inner need to investigate. Because it feels rare. Most men are either passive shadows or aggressive performers. But when you occupy the middle space, the silent, balanced presence, you magnetize attention. Now, let's talk about indirect engagement. One of the most underestimated tools in making her move first is your ability to spark desire in absentia. When you're not around her, but your trace still lingers, through a scent, a phrase, a visual, a question, that's when you've seduced her imagination. And a woman's imagination is far more powerful than any direct seduction. If you plant the right seeds, she'll water them for you. Here's how you do it. Leave conversations unfinished. Not by ghosting or being evasive, but by giving her something to think about. Mention a place you love, but don't explain why. Say, "That reminds me of something wild I experienced once," and then smile and change the subject. When she texts you, don't reply instantly every time. Not to play games, but to show that your attention is deliberate. And when you do reply, inject intrigue. Mention something unexpected you're doing, something artistic, adventurous, intellectual. Not to impress, but to hint. This isn't about mystery as a gimmick. It's about giving her room to imagine you. And the more she imagines, the more emotionally invested she becomes. Let's also break down an overlooked but deadly attractive trait: emotional discretion. In today's world, people overshare instantly. But when you hold back, when your emotions aren't immediately available, when your backstory doesn't spill out in the first 5 minutes, she starts earning your layers. And the more effort she invests, the more bonded she feels. This isn't manipulation. This is primal psychology. Human beings value what they work for. And when she has to pull a little harder to get to your core, she feels that her attention has meaning. Another technique is subtle contradiction. You show her traits that don't usually exist together. You're masculine, but emotionally intelligent. You're calm, but intense. You're detached, but deeply present when you speak. These contradictions force her brain to recalibrate its impression of you. He's not like the others. She can't use her usual playbook. And that throws her off just enough to make her act. And then comes the power of low-investment tests. You create tiny opportunities for her to step toward you without pressure. For example, you casually mention needing a recommendation for something. "I've been meaning to try a new book, but nothing's caught my interest lately." If she offers a suggestion or follows up later, she just made the first move. Or you share a small detail about your week and leave a gap for her to respond emotionally. If she empathizes, if she digs deeper, if she shows that she remembers, that's her investing emotionally. But you don't reward these moves with excessive praise or instant reciprocation. Instead, you acknowledge them subtly: eye contact, a smile, a slight lean in. That way, you reinforce the behavior without flipping the dynamic. She's still the one reaching, still the one leaning forward, still the one building momentum. And the more she moves, the more she owns her desire. That's what makes the experience powerful for her. Not just because she got your attention, but because she worked for it. Let's now explore one of the most intoxicating forces in seduction: unspoken sexual tension. This isn't about touching her or saying anything overt. It's about charging the space between you so that every look, every pause, every glance holds weight. Women are hypersensitive to energy. If she's even remotely interested, she'll pick up on signals most men don't even know they're sending. But when you learn to control those signals, that's when you create real tension. And the paradox is this: the more you withhold the obvious, the more she craves the unknown. You can build this tension simply by holding eye contact, not in a forced or aggressive way, but in a way that says, "I see you, but I'm not in a rush." Most guys look away too soon or stare with anxiety. You don't. You lock eyes, then let your gaze drop slowly to her lips for half a second, then return to her eyes, and you say nothing. That one moment, done right, is more powerful than an entire flirtatious conversation, because it awakens her body without needing a single word. But tension alone isn't enough. It needs conflict, not toxic arguments. I'm talking about subtle emotional friction. She says something playful. You challenge it. She makes a bold claim. You smirk and say, I'm not so sure about that. You're not being rude. You're being alive, engaged, unfiltered, and most importantly, unafraid to disagree. This shows you're not bending for her approval. And when a woman sees that she can't fully predict your responses, she becomes stimulated. Because now she has to earn your alignment. She has to figure you out. And here's the hidden layer. When conflict is playful and non-serious, it opens the door to flirtation. You tease her. She teases you back. You call out her exaggeration. She rolls her eyes and smiles. That emotional back and forth is the foreplay of the mind. And when that's present, a woman doesn't just enjoy the moment, she starts imagining what could happen. And once her imagination is engaged, her body isn't far behind. Now, most men kill this tension with compliments. They overpraise. They validate too quickly. But seduction is not about being liked. It's about being felt. And you don't become unforgettable by being agreeable. You become unforgettable by being emotionally bold. That means you're not afraid to make her feel something intense, even if it's momentary frustration, confusion, or awe. When you tell her, "I don't think you're used to men who challenge you," and then shift the topic, you've dropped a psychological seed, one that blooms in her thoughts long after the conversation ends. Let's also dive into one of the most elite skills, semantic framing. This is the art of shaping her reality through the way you speak. For example, instead of asking her, "What do?" you say, "What's something you're doing lately that actually excites you?" You've just reframed the interaction. It's no longer a boring interview. It's a deep connection. And it subtly implies that you value emotional energy, not status. That alone makes you feel different. You can also frame her behavior in a way that guides her perception of herself with you. For instance, if she opens up to you early in the conversation, you might say, "You're not usually this open with people, are you?" You're not asking, you're telling. And in doing so, you're subtly crafting a story. Being around you makes her behave differently. That's seductive, because she starts identifying herself not just as a woman, but as a woman who acts this way in your presence. And once that identity is set, her behavior will unconsciously reinforce it. Now let's go even deeper. Seduction isn't just about what happens in the interaction. It's about how she remembers it. And memory is shaped by emotional spikes. If every second of your presence feels the same, she forgets it. But if you create moments that interrupt her pattern, she stores them. That means you need to be unpredictable in small, elegant ways. Maybe you ask an unusually intimate question out of nowhere. Maybe you switch from humor to vulnerability for 30 seconds. Maybe you lean in and whisper something low just once, then pull back like nothing happened. That sudden shift grabs her nervous system. It bypasses her logical filter. And it etches you into her memory. Because in a world of repetitive male behavior, you've become a source of something new. Something she can't quite name, but feels drawn to. That feeling is what makes her make the move. And here's the final truth. When you stop trying to impress, when you let go of the need to be chosen, when you master the art of subtle tension, emotional control, and unpredictable presence, that's when she starts to move. Not because you chased her, not because you begged for her attention, but because you became the kind of man who doesn't need to pursue, because everything about you pulls her in without effort. You become a story she can't finish, a feeling she can't shake, a question that lives inside her long after the conversation ends. And it's in that space, in her mind, in her body, in her curiosity, that real attraction is born. This is the difference between being liked and being wanted. Most guys go for comfort. You go for impact. And when you live like this, when you move like this, women can't help but respond. Now, if this resonated with you, if you want to keep learning how to trigger real, authentic desire in a woman, not with games, but with grounded masculine power, then I invite you to join this movement. Share this video with a brother who needs to hear it. Leave a comment below and tell me where you're watching from or what part hit you the hardest. And most of all, don't just watch this. Live it. Because the moment you embody this energy, the game stops being about getting women and starts being about attracting them effortlessly by becoming the kind of man who doesn't just wait for her to make the first move, he inspires it. Now it's your turn. Let's make this message reach more men who are ready to wake up to their power. Like, share, comment, and stay dangerous.